Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LTH product briefing. Today, I'm delighted to have my friend, Daniel Farris, the partner in charge of the Chicago office at Norton Rose, Fulbright. He is a director of LX Studio, which is Norton Rose's subsidiary. And important for today's purposes, he is the founder and chief man in suit at Nimble Technologies, which is the producer of Proxy, the solution we're going to see today. So, Daniel, can you tell us a little bit of background about Proxy and Nimble and how they came to be?
Sure. Nimble Technologies was founded about 5 years ago in 2018. And, Proxy is our first commercial product. And really what we're seeking to solve is legal ops enablement. We really are focused on workflow management, workflow automation, and really helping over busy corporate legal departments put some controls and process around the way that they work, whatever that may be. So the tool is subject matter agnostic, it's very flexible, and it's intended to allow or enable the sort of process piece that a lot of legal departments struggle with, in order to create some control, consistency, efficiency, predictability, and help enable the internal processes for any legal department or in-house lawyer.
Okay, so it's sort of workflow process automation, but what problem would you say that it solves for in-house counsel or legal ops?
Many corporate legal departments struggle with managing the increased demand that they have on them. And that means that they're often mired in the sort of day-to-day administrative tasks and burden. And what Proxy really intends to do is to automate much of that and to minimize the impact of that administrative burden to allow lawyers and legal ops folks to kind of get back to doing the things day to day that are important to them, that are important to their organization, and do sort of the higher level stuff. It's about giving them control. And so it's really about helping overwhelmed in-house lawyers get back to doing what they want to be doing day to day. So I think what I'll do is show kind of the core features, right, of, intake, I think, is a big one. But before I get to intake, I'd like to set the stage with the key workflow task management features that Proxy offers. One of the things I think is important to note, Nikki, is that traditionally, project management or matter management software tends to assume that there is always a sort of top level project that is hierarchical, where there are multiple workflows and workflows have multiple tasks, right? And it's linear, mostly linear. And what we know is that that's not the way we all work, right? We have ad hoc tasks that pop up, we ping pong around. And so we have flipped that traditional model on its head, where it's more of a bottom up than top down approach. So tasks are the basic building blocks of Proxy, and they can be grouped together into workflows and workflows into projects. And so I really want to demonstrate how the tool is different in that regard.
Excellent. Well, that sounds super interesting. Let's jump in and take a look.
I will go ahead and share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
I can.
Perfect. So what you see in front of you is the sort of basic dashboard. Given the time constraints, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on a dashboard, but I will say I will just highlight these kind of infographics here at the top. A lot of people tend to like them. The first one here gives you a sense as to how many tasks or flows or projects might be due on any given day. So you can kind of do some planning, load balancing, get a sense for when you're going to be busier versus less busy, and do some, kind of planning on your week ahead in a way that's visual and easy to grasp. And then this little wheel here kind of tells you, look, you've got 386 things you're balancing. How many of them are assigned to you? Are you the bottleneck? Are they assigned to other folks, on your team? Or are they out to other folks within the organization where you might need to track and keep an eye on things, but it's not really on your desk or your team's desk? So we find that's useful for folks. But really where most people live most of the time in the system, Nikki, is in this task view. And this is really where we get into like the day-to-day stuff, right, that folks are handling. What you see kind of in the main table view here are, sort of a task list. Think of it as, a glorified to-do list. But these are things that you might be tracking yourself, either for others on your team or that you're handling. So, here I can see I've got a response to office action that I'm handling. Christopher and I are drafting this policy here. I'm waiting for, Frank to approve this other policy. And so really at a glance, I can kind of see what's going on and what's on my plate.
I really like how you can assign it to two people, or, I mean, that's so realistic. It's often not just one person who's on a task, but it's rare to see that.
And actually, as I get into this, you can assign to multiple individuals or even to teams or multiple teams. So I'll sort of show you how that works in a second. But the other thing that we put a lot of thought into is how to manage priority, right? So we basically have priority three different ways. We have this importance ranking where you can see something is sort of high, medium, or low, red, yellow, green, right? Which is user defined, but can be for the organization, for your team, for that individual user. How important is this, right, to me? Due date, right, is really urgency, right? The sooner something is due, the more urgent it is. But we know that notwithstanding importance or urgency, users may have individual attorneys, legal ops folks, paralegals, whoever it is, might have their own priorities. And so this entire list is completely sort rankable, and the rankings, my rankings will not affect any other user. There are some ways that with access controls that, like a manager could dictate to his or her team what the priority for that team will be. The average in-house lawyer might be setting their own priorities. And so they can set their own and it won't affect anybody else, right? It won't change the rankings on anybody else's view.
I see at the top, I really like how you have the little graphics. If those were overdue tasks in your list, would they show up as red, or would you be able to see in this list that they were overdue?
Yes, you could see here, these are not overdue. And obviously the staging environment, so a lot of the stuff gets thrown into it. But yes, they'll show up as red, right? And I mean, even at the top here, you can see I've got 3 due today, and I can go see what those 3 are. In fact, to that end, Nikki, one of the other things we hear a lot from users that they really find useful about the product is the ability to put their finger on things and to sort of filter and slice and dice things as they may want. So just by way of example, I can search tasks, and as I type, it's going to start to filter based on anything that has a P in it. But if I want to say, find all the policies in the system, I can do that without even having to complete that sentence, right, or that word, and it's going to find them. And then I can, even on top of that, I can say like, well, here are the policies that are assigned to me, or the policies that are assigned to me and Frank, right? So I can do that searching. I can also say, hey, what's my HR team working on? And what's my HR team working on that's, say, tagged employment versus benefits or discrimination or executive comp or whatever. And so it allows me to really, find things a lot of different ways. I can export this into, Excel spreadsheets, into PDFs, into, different types of reports. So it allows people, I think, to view things very easily. I can say, hey, I want to see only those things that are assigned to me, right? Versus the things that everybody might be working on that I'm tracking, etc.
I presume so you could have like individual views. You could have a view that a manager would have that shows their whole team. I can also immediately see, I'm sure this isn't set up for it right now, but I could see how valuable that would be from a matter management perspective as well. If what you're looking at is an easy way to find work that your team has done in the past also. I love that nimble search is terrific.
That's exactly right. And our global search feature will allow you to search through everything, through all tasks, workflows, projects, any documents in the system, discussion threads and comments. And I'll show you that. Maybe let's use this one where it's assigned to multiple people. So this is a fictional computer, email, and internet use policy task, right? Where what we're drafting is a policy here. That is, you can see this little breadcrumb trail here at the top. It says, hey, look, that's in the tech policies workflow, as compared to leave policies or EEO policies, which are part of this employee handbook project, right? So we're sort of fictionally creating a new employee handbook. There are multiple sections of that. And this is, within the tech policies workflow. I'm going to skip over some of this metadata again and come back to it. because one of the things, again, that we hear a lot from users and that they really like is we've got these three boxes here, okay? And what we heard when we did our research, our market research, our requirements gathering was over and over again, lawyers would say, hey, look, when I'm working on a legal matter, it's not the communications that are important to me. It's not the documents. It's not the sort of history and current status. It's all of those things. But those things might be in 10 different systems. They're in my CMS, DMS, email, Slack. They're on a spreadsheet. I got to look in 10 different places. I'd love something that helps bring all of that together. That's what we attempt to do here, right? So this discussion thread, you can easily do messages in app here, but it's integrated with email. So you can see this is like my signature block. So I can actually just email with other people on my team, and based on plugins or using links or whatever, I can also then just be copying the system so that it's staying up to date, so that anyone who then has access to this matter, this task, will see what's going on, right? So that helps a tremendous amount with change management and adoption, because those lawyers who say, I like the way I work, I don't want to learn a new system, I don't want to change. Well, you don't really have to, right? Just copy the system. And then the paralegal or the more junior person on the team or the legal ops person can come behind and say, I have all this data. I can organize it the way I want. I can tag it. That's true of documents here. And these documents can reside. These are all test docs here because it's a staging environment and demo environment, but
allows you to see a matter sort of as a whole, discussions and emails on it, the documents on it, everything.
That's right. And I also, this has, we do a ton of integrations, Office 365, the G Suite, various DMS, CMS, et cetera. So from an information governance standpoint, you don't have to move data into the system. You can keep documents where they already live and do an integration, and you don't have to change, right? So just by sort of saying, hey, I want to view this in the native environment, it's going to pop you out, and now you don't have to keep stuff in the system, right? You can maintain your information governance. So then at the top here, just to finish this, as I noted, Nikki, here's that way where you could assign this to multiple people, right? So I could add, Frank, I could take Christopher out, whatever you want to do. But I also have these groups. So by default, we built this on a privacy by design framework. So by default, you can, the average user will see only those tasks or workflows, projects that they create, that somebody else creates and assigns to that user, or that are assigned to a group that the user is a member of. So here I have HR and IP teams. That means anybody who's in these groups can see this task, but it's assigned specifically to two people. So I can give access to everybody in the HR team, but still say, Frank and Daniel have to resolve this. So it's very useful in that regard. We have obviously due dates and start dates. You can clear this and make something open-ended, so it doesn't have to be due at any given time. So, you've got these assigned groups, tags that are customizable. There is a privilege log here. You can mark things as privileged, and then status. These status for any individual matter, these are all customizable. They can be grouped into workflows or projects. So projects, right, just to give you a sense, I'll go into this employee handbook one just briefly to show you kind of what that looks like. Here's a top level project. It's got one owner with multiple assigned users. It's got the same discussion threads, documents, but then it also has workflows. So I can expand any one of these workflows. I can navigate into the workflow. I can view that as a Gantt chart. So again, that's where you get into those more structured kind of things. I also can create templates. So I can templatize my workflows, right? So just very briefly, by way of example, I can say anytime I'm doing an NDA, it's always going to be named non-disclosure agreement with the name of the company. It's always going to be assigned to Chris. It's always going to be due 10 days out in advance. I can create custom fields for that workflow. And then I can say, I always want the same tasks. I want the same process every time. Confirm the other party, select the right template, approve it, execute it. So it allows for a lot of automation.
If you were the person who was assigned that piece of work, that task, within the workflow. So the system would then automatically generate something that would go to you when that piece of work comes in, and it would say, your task now is to draft this. And then how does that follow through?
So we have notification settings that are in app or email. So you can select, right? Each user can select to know, hey, do I want to get emails on this or not? But yes, right? I mean, if we look at a typical workflow, here's a new NDA request, right? So that confirm other party information is assigned to Allison. Once that's completed, then the right template goes to Chris. Then that approval piece goes to Tracy, and then Sue's got to execute. And so for each one of these, I can come in and say, all right, that's completed. And there you go. It's marked as complete.
It keeps people on track and everyone understands what the process is, and it brings consistency. That's great.
Yeah. Now we have a sort of rudimentary DMS, but we do the integrations with those. There's reporting features. Requests are inbound funnel. So that's where any, non-user of the system, some other stakeholder within the business or whatever might say, hey, I have a request that I need approval for, and that goes in. And then as a gatekeeper, whoever that might be, or might be multiple people within the legal department, can say, hey, I want to convert this, and I'm going to convert it to a workflow. And now I'm going to use that NDA template and now, convert that workflow, and it gets converted. And now as I go to look at my workflows, it has created that as a workflow, automatically populated those same tasks, assigned them out to the right users. Everybody now knows what their responsibilities are. Things flow in an automated way.
This has been super interesting and very insightful. And I think the key for people watching to know is you can reach out to Daniel. We'll also put a URL to Nimble and Proxy so that, people know where to reach out to find out more information. And yeah, it really looks fantastic. Daniel, thank you so much for taking the time to show us Proxy.